All right. Recording in progress. Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Audrey, can you see my screen okay? Beautiful. Hopefully you see restore the rhythm, a simple reset after the holidays. Beautiful. We did not. We did I tried a similar thing last year with a habit-based challenge. Nobody signed up for it. So we yeah, please. So we reworked it a little bit this year. We also changed the time. Last year we did it in February. I wanted to try to do it for January for this kind of a resolution-y kind of a time frame. I think it's a good time to kind of kick off and work on some of these simple habits. But everybody, thank you for coming in this morning. We're going to keep this relatively brief. This will probably be like 20 to 30 minutes of talking time over the presentation, kind of going over what the challenge is. This is a little bit like a nutrition challenge. This is a little bit like a habit challenge, lifestyle challenge. We're going to be talking about other aspects as opposed to just the nutrition side of things. There's probably going to be some questions along the way too. And so we'll have some time for questions at the end. If you have questions in the middle, though, I'm also perfectly fine to chat about those things. I can't see Audrey anymore, but I hope that she's there.
I think. Can you swap it? Oh, there she is.
There she is. Okay, just double checking.
I just turned off my video.
No worries, no worries. You keep your video off if you'd like. That's fine. All right, guys. So thank you all for coming in this morning. Thank you guys for signing up for this. One of the reasons why we came up with this idea of a rhythm that we're trying to restore as opposed to like a challenge or a restart or a reset or a kickoff or all these other words is because this is a time of year that getting back into a rhythm is something that is important. It can feel kind of like things are hectic over the holiday timeframes. Routines get disrupted. We start to see people that we don't necessarily always see. We see family. We're doing things with work activities. We're traveling a lot more. And that disruption of routines can really lead to a feeling of like almost like a listless kind of a spin, like, oh gosh, what should I be doing? And so we're trying to bring ourselves back to some basics here. Other things that can be challenging this time of year is people get into all or nothing thinking, where it's like, I'm either doing what I need to be doing or I'm completely falling off of the wagon. And so what we're trying to do here with this challenge is to create some minimums, to create some ideas of like, there are some things that help us feel dialed in or plugged in, or like we're doing what we need to be doing from a health perspective, and trying to figure out what those things are for each one of us so that when we get to this time of year, because holidays, craziness, life always will happen, kind of keeping those as our minimums of saying, I'm not going to let this thing fall off, because I know if this thing falls off, that everything else will start to get slippery slope, and I'll start to feel like I'm listless or I've lost that rhythm again. And then also people, a lot of this time, I've seen several, I don't know if you guys have seen this on Facebook too, or somebody's like, I'm doing 75 hard, or I'm doing like, this is the time of year where it's like, I'm starting completely over. I'm blowing everything up. And this is a time that I'm going to do things that I've never done before, or make something harder than it's ever been before. And I hope that I stick with it. This is not that type of a challenge. The goal here isn't to get perfection across the 4 weeks. You can totally move towards that if you'd like, but the goal here is really in February and March, feeling that we've set a baseline with the stuff that we're doing in January that allows us to continue to see progress or sustain that progress over time. So we're just trying to close the gap between practical, sustainable habits and what we have the ability to, what we have the time to do with our days. There we go. Beautiful. So we don't need a reset. We just want to find ourselves a rhythm. What restore the rhythm is, if you guys, you can also look that way if you guys want to see the presentation that I'm talking through here. You can just keep on looking at me though. I'm also perfectly fine with that. I don't mind being the center of attention. What restore the rhythm is. So these are going to be simple daily habits. They're going to be built on our 4 pillars, which we'll go through in a second. You've heard them before. You'll probably hear them again. It's going to be relatively flexible in the way of scoring, but we're going to try to go through, create some clarity in terms of what counts and what doesn't count, because sometimes I feel like we can overthink things, and we want to try not to overthink. The goal is to not make things overly stressful for the next 4 weeks. There are going to be some weekly check-ins, and we'll talk about what those look like, and then also the community accountability aspect of this. This is very similar to the September challenge, if any of you guys have done that, if anybody who is calling in has done that before, in that there's going to be hopefully people sharing their experiences, and also people saying, yeah, I had that same experience, or I'm struggling with this, or I found that this was helpful for me. We have a community chat that we're going to be doing that in, and then also we'll have some space in the gym to do those things as well. What Restore the Rhythm is not, is we're not doing a detox. This is not like we're trying to do a juice cleanse, or we're trying to fast for 28 days, or overhaul a diet. We're not doing a 75 hard. We're not going to be completely cutting out sweets or carbohydrates. We're not going to be completely only eating proteins and fats. Where there's no specific meal plan that you're following for this next 4 weeks. It's also not punishment. Like, this is I think it's something I wanted to hit on, which is sometimes we feel like, oh, that all or nothing is like, I was bad, so now I'm like whipping myself into shape so that I can be good again. It's like, that's not necessarily what we're trying to shoot for here. We're trying to shift that all or nothing mentality a little bit more towards that dial of, we're not trying to punish ourselves for what's been happening. We're just trying to find ourselves a good minimum, or a baseline. And it's also not supposed to be a test of willpower, of like you sitting there and at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I said I was going to get 3 points every single day. I haven't eaten a balanced meal. What can I pull out of my fridge at 10:30 at night to get my third balanced meal for the day? That's not necessarily what we're going for. The intention there would be like, hey, if we didn't get the point that day, maybe we set a better plan for the next, Tuesday, as opposed to trying to crunch everything in on Monday. We're just trying to create some forward motion and some forward momentum. Our 4 pillars, these are going to be our habits. Each of our habits is going to live inside one of these 4 pillars. And these are the if you sat down with me for a goal review, the things I typically ask questions about, or that we talk about during those goal reviews: sleep, eat, move, and manage. These are the 4 health habits that we really talk about here in the CrossFit gym. In the eating category here, this is kind of what makes this more of a nutrition challenge. We are going to be doing some nutrition-based habits that we're going to be tracking over the next 4 weeks. But we're looking at this more from a stance of like balancing these types of meals, and not necessarily restricting, or not trying to like cut calories super low, or anything restrictive in that category of eating. We're going to talk about how we are balancing meals and snacks, how we're going to be keeping track from an awareness perspective of our food. And then hopefully learning some things over the next 4 weeks. Movement, this is one that's kind of, I always say, obvious in a gym setting, but moving our body, this doesn't always have to be in the gym. Sometimes this is outside of the gym, can't make it to the gym. What are we doing not here that allows us to continue to hit that pillar on a relatively consistent basis? Managing is our shortcut there for managing stress. Typically, stress is one of those things that is I think not thought about in these 4 pillars. Eating, moving, and sleeping. Maybe even sleeping doesn't get taught. Most people think about the top 2. They think about eating and moving, but it stresses that we put onto our system, we're trying to recover from a movement perspective. And if our stresses aren't well balanced, we could potentially not be setting ourselves up for success from a recovery perspective there. So some stress management is going to come into this challenge as well. And then lastly, some sleep. Sleep is the only time of day that we are restoring, we're rebuilding the body. And so some sort of a minimum there is something that we want to keep track of, especially if we're wanting some sort of a change, like I want to put on muscle, or I want to get stronger, or I want to decrease my body fat, or I want to improve performance in the gym. Sleep is going to be a foundational pillar there. Again, the bottom there says you don't need to perfect all 4, you just need to practice them consistently and have some sort of a minimum of what that practice looks like. Crazy thing is, anybody here pull an all-nighter last night? Brooks did. Anybody pull an all-nighter the night before?
No.
How about anybody skip all their meals yesterday? You're doing my point here is you're doing all of these things in some amount right now. Maybe that's not the amount that's getting you the return on that investment that you're looking for. And so what we're just looking for this next 4 weeks is understanding how these pillars affect our life. Brooks is, for those of you in the ether out there, Brooks put his hand up for the hold it all nighter last night because he worked at the station. With working at the station, there are life events that happen that lead to those things. My point here is that with some sort of a rhythm, you're doing all of these things, and we'll talk about what that rhythm looks like. There we go.
That would be fun.
All right, guys. So for the specifics as to what our habits are that we're going to be tracking, you guys have this. And if you're not here, Audrey, or you're not here and you're watching this recording, you're going to get an email with this for you to print out or to use the digital version of it. But we're just going to go through each of those, I guess, the columns of this nutrition challenge tracking sheet. The first one, this fits into that eat pillar, which is balanced meals and snacks. So you have the option to, or the ability to get up to 3 points every day with 1 point coming from each of those meals or snacks. So let's say you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Each one of those has the opportunity to be a balanced meal. So you can have the opportunity for 3 points. Let's say you eat 5 meals and snacks. You can still only get 3 points on this day, even if you balance all those meals and snacks. We're very proud of you if you do that. But 3 points is what we're getting.
Yeah, just getting 10 balanced meals a day.
You don't get 10 points a day. That does not count as 5 points. You're correct. So, and we'll go more in depth on this one specifically here in just a second. But we're going to be focusing on protein plants and then also making sure that we're satisfied. So we're eating for satiety, making sure that we feel full after our meals, trying to keep it relatively simple. The next eat habit there is going to be tracking your food, and that's going to be 2 points a day. We're going to talk about methods here that we can use. Any method is fair game. That includes apps, that includes notebooks, that includes photo journal on your device. That could also mean just writing all those things down. We have people walking. Thank you, Kobe. Appreciate it. And that's going to be 2 points a day. So this is an all or nothing point list. So if you are tracking all your food, you get 2 points. We're not doing partial points on this one. Next up is our sleep habit, which is going to be sleeping 7+ hours a night. For some of us, that's going to be a challenge. For some of us, you're like, I got this already. Oh yeah, that will be 2 points. That was I appreciate you calling me out there. I'll get that fixed on the sheets. If you guys want to, there's some pen. Yeah, if you guys just want to write down 2 points there. Yep. So for sleep, 7+ hours. If you get naps to get that 7+ hours, that's okay. So if you sleep 6 hours and then you get another hour of a nap, we're going to count that as good. But this is the idea. We're protecting our sleep window. We're creating some habits here. Now, if I was working with somebody individually on this, and you're like, David, I've been getting 4.5 hours of sleep a night, 7 hours from 4.5 hours is going to feel like a big jump. So that might look like for you, like I'm going to try and get 5.5 hours. There can be some individualization here. For our points, we're going to go 7.5 or 7+ hours. If anybody needs to chat about that, you're like, David, that's asking me to double what I'm currently doing. We got some things to talk about. But we also don't need to be, I don't want you to feel like, oh, there's no way that I could possibly do that. So there's no point in me focusing on my sleep. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next up is our hydration. We're going to be shooting for 80 ounces of clear water a day. Clear water a day. So LaCroix would count. Tea would not count. Coffee would not count. Powerade would not count. Coke would not count. Sprite would not count. Yes, putting water in it doesn't count. We're shooting for... Crystal Light would technically not count. However, I'm not going to be there to police every single thing that you're doing. That is a lot of water. It absolutely is a lot of water. Dehydration is one of those things that leads to performance decreases. Like I think it's like for every 5% you're dehydrated, you decrease your performance by 10 to 20%. So like when people come in here, like I'm just not feeling strong or I'm not feeling like I can push as hard as possible. Water is one of those easy things that we can do on a daily basis to take advantage of that. And you get a point a day for that 80 ounces. So you probably do 2 of those a day. Yep. So 2 of those a day. And hold on, we'll also get there. So these are all of the habits that we're tracking. We'll get there. If it feels overwhelming, just give me a second. Stress relief practice. So this is also going to be something that we're doing on a daily basis. And we're going for 5+ minutes of some sort of a stress relief practice. That could be some sort of meditation. That could be some sort of breathing. That could be prayer. That could be journaling. That could be getting outside and doing a restorative walk. Ideally, you would be doing it in a way that's de-stressing. So like if you're out walking and you're like doom scrolling on your phone at the same time, probably not the most stress relieving practice out there, but we got to start somewhere. This is also like if life is crazy and you just like go sit in your car and just breathe for 5 minutes, that counts. Absolutely counts. And you get 1 point a day for that. Thank you. Did I mess something up again? Reading would count as well. Yep. The goal here is that when you get done with a practice, you feel some amount of restorative, like, oh, I feel better after doing those types of things. Some people, movement is a stress relief practice. That is, I'm going to leave up to you if you're going to count coming to the gym as a stress relief practice or not. I typically think of it as a little bit more of a stress inducing practice. Up to you. Exercise. This is going to be our last habit here, which is going to be up to 5 points a week. So similar to our 3 points a day, we're going to give up to 5 points per week for exercise. So Monday through Sunday, if you're exercising 7 days, you get 5 points. If you exercise 3 days, you get 3 points. And that definition of exercise is 30 minutes or more of intentional activity. So coming to the gym counts. If you go out and go for a 30-minute walk, that counts. If you do a 30-minute yoga video on Instagram or on YouTube, that counts. All of that is just interacting with movement in an intentional way, 30 minutes or more a day. Okay. And for up to 5 points a week. What we're going for here is we're also trying to reward behavior. We're not going for perfection. And we're also not necessarily going for like, I have to maximize all these things mentioned again. If any of these are things that you're not familiar with or you're not currently doing, you don't need to max those things out in order for us to get the most points possible. The goal is for you to get as much out of this challenge, this next 4 weeks as possible, which is going to be all of you a little bit of a different thing. Okay, so how we are tracking, those of you who are watching this recording here, I'll hold this guy up. You're going to have a paper sheet or also a digital copy. They mentioned already that there's a little issue here, and I'll fix that before I send it out, that you are going to be keeping track of your daily and weekly habits on. And how this is going to work is you're going to use this crazy little device here called a pen. Mm-hmm. And when you do the thing, you're just going to give yourself a tally inside that. So if you're doing let's say week 1, Monday, balanced plate and snacks, 3 points, 1 per meal. If you do breakfast, tally. If you do lunch, tally. If you do an afternoon snack, that's a balanced snack, tally. You'll see tally points all the way across. And then at the very bottom, there's a total. If you want to total it up, you can. You don't necessarily need to. You'll do that for Monday through Sunday, and you'll do that for balanced plate and snacks, tracked food, exercise, stress relief, 80 ounces of water, 7+ hours of sleep. That's going to be how you keep track of your activities throughout the week. When it comes to how you submit those types of things, you're going to snap a picture and you're going to send it to me. I have the information you could do that on email, or you could do that via text message. You're just going to take a picture, send that to me, and that's going to be our completion of the tracking aspect of this. You can do that by Sunday at 8 o'clock.
Keeping track of everybody's
I sure will. I'll give myself extra points for stress relief. Exactly. And those are going to be by Sunday at 8 p.m. So ideally by Sunday at 8 p.m., we have an idea of what our practices across that day look like as well. And then, so there's going to be, you're submitting this. You could technically send me a picture with 1 tally on there. And that counts as completion for the week, which is how you get entered into the weekly raffles to win prizes on the weekly basis. So again, I don't care about the number of points on here. We're going for, I'm going to call it the completionist aspect of setting ourselves up to do these things, following through across the week. And that might be 2 days you fall off and then 3 days you get back on the wagon, taking a picture of that and sending that to me on Sundays. Again, you get entered into the raffle to win the weekly prizes, which we'll talk about just in a second.
It's the only time I approve like participation points. This is it.
This is
all
we
I
are
approve of.
truly just participating, and that participation is hopefully meeting you where you're at. Okay, so we're going to talk now about what do we mean by balance, because that's one that is a little bit more, or could be a little bit more subjective. So Colby's going to talk to us about what we mean by balance with these meals.
So balance just means that we're hitting our protein, plants, carbs, and fats per meal. So protein, that we're going to kind of view this as the anchor of your plate. It's going to help keep you full, help support recovery, builds and maintains muscle. It's also really good for your immune function. I'm sure that David's kind of here with me, but when you start with the protein, it's usually much easier to kind of build around the protein opposed to starting with everything else and then trying to end with the protein. I also find that protein usually takes the longest to prep, usually takes the most brain power. So if you can start there, it's going to kind of set you up for success a little bit better. This can look like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, tofu, if you're into that, beans, stuff like that. So start with the protein and then kind of move to the rest of your plate. So when we're talking about plants and fiber, we're looking for color, volume, nutrients. It's also really going to help with your digestion and satisfaction. We had another seminar where we were talking about digestion and people didn't know. Yeah, about that. But this can look like fruit.
I didn't put number of bowel movements on here, but you could easily track positive number of bowel movements across the.
It's a 5
How about this? How about this? For a healthy human, it should be a daily substantial bowel movements. Just saying. Just saying.
So
This one will help. Plants fiber will help with that.
will help with that. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for color, volume. If you are someone who's trying to eat in volume, I am a volume eater. Adding fruits and vegetables to your plate is really going to help with that. You're going to be able to eat a large amount of volume for very little calories. Carbohydrates, this is going to be so important for CrossFitters because this is our energy and our performance fuel. If we are not getting carbohydrates, it's going to be really tough to have that oomph in your workouts. It's also really important for movement and just the brain overall to have energy so that you can keep functioning. It's going to support hormonal balance and recovery as well. So that can look like fruit, rice, potatoes, oats, bread, even pastas, waffles.
Kathy.
We can have an apple and eggs and other things.
So we're gonna run through some of those real quickly because we were talking about that just a second ago.
But that's what we're looking for when it comes to carbs. Fats, this is going to be just for energy, and satisfaction. Your long-term energy is going to come from your fat sources. So that's why that's important. It also just makes your food taste good. I am someone who never runs out of butter.
If you've ever been the person who eats chicken and rice and broccoli and you don't put any fat on it and you're like, oh, that's so terrible. It's like, well, yeah, because you don't have, it's literally just protein, plants, carbs, no fat, tastes terrible.
What are you doing? Like,
Tastes terrible. I mean, that used to be what I would do all the time. And I absolutely
made himself lunch the other day and made that. I was like, wow, you must be mad.
Now, if I do that, I put some sort of delicious sauce on the top that gives it some sort of a flavor.
What'd you say?
Teeming with taste.
Teeming with taste.
Teeming with taste.
So that's what we're looking for fats. It's also going to be really important just for hormones, long-term energy, helps absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. It's also going to aid in joint health and fullness. So a few sources, it can look like olive oil, avocado oil, nuts and seeds, butter, cheese, fatty fish, and the meat. So typically when we're making that plate, I'm always going to start with my protein, like we talked about. I'm going to add my plants and my fiber. I'm going to then move to my carbs. And then finally, I'm going to finish with my fats. And just know that if we go in that order, your calories are usually going to fall in line where they need to. The fats are going to be a little bit higher per kcal. So that's kind of why we want to end with those. But there's lots of different really good sources for those as well.
Yep. And I put down here at the bottom, like, we don't need to do this all the time, but this is a very beneficial, healthful practice to have, which is balancing our meals and balancing our snacks. And if we can do that more often than not, we're going to be healthy humans. Like, we're going to feel better. We're going to look better. We're going to perform better more often than not. And we're shooting for 3 of these a day. So 3 of these points a day. So 3 of these balanced meals or balanced snacks that has all of these in it. So Kathy mentioned earlier, if I eat waffles for breakfast. And I said, okay, what is a waffle? Waffle is primarily carbohydrate. Okay, beautiful. What else do we add to our waffle?
She said butter.
Butter. Okay, what is butter? Butter is a fat. Okay, so we have 2 of those things now. We have carbs and fats. What else do we need to add to this? Or could we add to this to make it a balanced? Fruit. So fruit would be more carbohydrates. What did you say? Greek yogurt would be protein. There we go. And now what are we missing of those 4 proteins, plants, fiber, carbs, and fats? Some sort of a fiber.
Mm-hmm.
Some sort of a fiber. There's some fiber in fruit, but there's also carbohydrates in fruit. Yeah. Berries are also carbohydrates, but there's some fiber there. Absolutely. So this is where, and some of you, I am not a vegetable eater for breakfast.
No.
So I'm not going to balance that meal.
Unless
that's just
potatoes.
Like, I'm not going to put broccoli on the side of that meal, or maybe I'll do an omelet with some onions and some mushrooms, but you could do spinach. Absolutely. Yes. That would be, if you put all that together, that would be our balanced plate. You're like, David, but there's waffles on there. It's like, yeah, that's our carbohydrate.
Yeah, that's fuel.
And this is where we're not trying to be super particular here, but we can take just about everything and turn it into a balanced meal or balanced snack. And our goal here is really just to think about, so if I'm eating a cookie, that's going to be what goes into a cookie. You got carbohydrates and you got fat. Okay, so we have 2 of those already hit. What do I want to hit? What do I add to that cookie in order to make it balanced? Maybe I do a protein shake. Yep. And then maybe you're a muesli person. You put some fiber into that, or some psyllium husk into that protein shake. That's all 4 of those categories. How much fiber is in a Metamucil capsule? How many grams of fiber is in that?
Yeah, it's 4 capsules stated.
This is back to the we're not going to be super object, or I'm not going to be like watching you do these things. If you count that as your balance, I'm good with that. If that's balance for you. My recommendation though is we're often trying to go for something that's like whole food oriented here, if possible. And this is where we're also not trying to get super depth of quality points here. So like if you say a potato is better than a waffle, I could argue that until the cows came home, but she says waffles for breakfast. And you're like, but David, that's a processed carbohydrate, still carbohydrate. We're just trying to go for the overarching theme here of balancing meals. When we have proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and vegetables at each of our meals, our blood glucose, our insulin levels are going to be more regularized. We're not going to have as steep troughs and dips there. Energy levels are going to be better. Satiety after your meals, you're not going to eat your meal and then 30 minutes later be super hungry again. Those are the things that we're more trying to reward here, as opposed to saying exactly what the points were about. So as you're going through this, there also is some awareness that we're looking for, which is where when we talk about, we're doing this without overthinking. So this could include, yeah, Kathy's like, it's all for me.
Kathy's like, I can't do this.
So like Colby mentioned, we're going to start with the protein and we're going to build around it. That's eggs, chicken, yogurt, beans. If you're a vegetarian, you like to don't like to eat meat, having some options there that are in that dairy category or in that vegan category, vegetarian category can be super helpful. We're aiming for better, not aiming for perfect, and snacks count in this process. One balanced choice, we can anchor the whole day around that balanced choice, especially if you're somebody who struggles to do this, like try it at breakfast, try it earlier in the day and see how that propagates across the rest of the day. We're practicing and we're not trying to do it perfectly. We're trying to get better with it across the 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think the goal would be to keep asking yourself, like, hey, is this working for me? You know, like that's the point of this is after these 4 weeks, you have some rhythm, you have some ideas of what works for you in your life. It's not just to get points. Like if your main goal during this process is to get as many points as you can, I'm happy for you. But then you come out of this and you're like, man, I'm so glad that I'm done with the challenge. Like we kind of missed
what I was doing before.
we kind of missed the mark there. So just keep asking yourself that, hey, is this working for my life?
Do I feel better?
Yeah.
Am I performing well? Am I
better?
sleeping better? Yeah.
Yeah, a list of foods of like what constitute fibers and carbs.
Sure. Sure. I can absolutely get you that. Some of you who have done a power hour probably have something similar to that already. But if you don't have that, we can absolutely send it out. Beautiful. So food tracking is the next one of those next, I'm going to call it more subjective. Yes, go ahead, Kelly. Like body fat, is that what you mean? Yep. So it is a strategy. The question that I will always ask is, do you like carbohydrates? So you're probably going to eat them again at some point in the future. So understanding how to live in balance with them is probably a better long-term strategy than just cutting carbohydrates. You can cut back on carbohydrates. Like if you look at your plate and your plate is 2/3 carbohydrates, like a balanced plate would look more like maybe a quarter of your plate protein, a quarter of your plate starchy carbs, a third to half of your plate vegetables, and a little bit of healthy fat in there. And if you look at your plate and you're like, well, that is not what's happening, maybe cutting back a little bit could be valuable, but you also will probably want to insert other things in place of those carbohydrates. Like if you like think of like pasta, you look at a bowl of pasta, most of that is going to be carbs and fat, little bit of protein in there. You're like, okay, well I'm trying not to go quite so heavy on the carbohydrates. I want to be a little more balanced, cut back on some of the noodles. Maybe we add some more meat into that, to that dish. We have some vegetables on the side, a side salad, or we do some broccoli that we throw into that as well, to find ourselves a better, more balanced plate, which has those carbohydrates in it, but it doesn't allow it. It's not allowing the carbohydrates to kind of overpower everything else. So it's a strategy. It's probably not the most longevous or sustainable strategy in the long term. You can still do it with this challenge. We just want to have some carbohydrates. You can say, David, I don't want to do starchy carbohydrates at all. I just want to do fruit. That's perfectly fine. Yeah. Yeah. You could totally do that. You could also say, I don't want to do any processed carbohydrates and I want to do just potatoes or bread or, whatever it might be. There are ways to take what we're doing and apply it in lots of different ways. We're trying to give more like like 30,000 foot view that you can kind of apply the way that you want to. And if you have people have questions about that, or like, how do I apply this for myself? Find Colby or I, and we can help with that.
I think if you're going to cut something, you want to have an end like time for that. Like I'm going to cut them out of my diet for 3 weeks, but then my next question is like, well, what happens when the 3 weeks is over? So that's why kind of reforming that plate, like David's saying, is going to be better long-term than just cutting something out and expecting you to like hold on for dear life for it.
Hopefully I never eat a carbohydrate
Yeah,
again. Hopefully I never eat a carbohydrate. So from a food tracking perspective, I mentioned this as well. It's supposed to be flexible. This is the goal is for it to be flexible. We're not trying to be as dialed in. If you've ever done like macro tracking where you're hitting your calories and your protein and your fat goals exactly, not trying to do that unless you want to. You can totally do that. Like Brooks has a lot of experience with that. If you want to do that, you totally can. We're just trying to create some awareness here. So ways that we can do that, you could do that an app like MyFitnessPal, like chronometer, however you say that word.
How do you
I say chronometer, chronometer,
Chronometer?
however you say it. It doesn't matter. It could be macros first. There's lots of these places, apps that are created that have a library that you can put that information into. You can also do this in a notes app on your phone. You could just write down breakfast. I had waffles and eggs and butter and spinach. Beautiful. There's your balanced meal, right? We're just keeping track of that somehow so that later you're not like, what did I have for breakfast today? Did I know this? I can't exactly remember. Some awareness here is what we're trying to create. You can also use photos. This is one of my favorite methods, which is just create an album on your phone before you eat or while you're eating your meal, take a picture of it. And that way you can just scroll back and look at what you were eating and say, yep, that was a pretty good balanced meal. It's also valuable from if you're wanting feedback perspective. For if you showed Colby or I one of these pictures and you're like, hey, would you call this a balanced meal? If you're like, I truly don't know, I'm looking for feedback. If we don't have any, like even if you look at a written version of it, I can say like, it's hard for me to tell how much of each of those things, but each of those things constitute a balanced meal. A video or a photo gives us a visual representation for us to say like, yeah, that looks like a solid balanced meal. Or you could probably do a little bit more protein, or you could probably do a little bit more vegetables or less carbohydrates. Photojournal is a great way to do that. I mentioned not going for accuracy even here. We're going for awareness. The goal is for us to be able to look at this entire 4 weeks and to say like, oh, I did a much better job week 2 than I did week 1 balancing my meals. You're like, why did I do that? What did I do differently? And a lot of times we do things and we try something, but we don't remember what we did or what we tried. So those things fall off because we forget that we did them at some point. We're just trying to create a little bit of awareness here. No macros are required. If you want to track macros, you can. We're just trying to notice patterns. That's really what we're trying to do is notice, oh, my energy levels were terrible. I slept bad and I gave myself tremendously more carbohydrates yesterday and not very much balance at my meals. Yeah, okay. That doesn't make me feel very good. I'm not going to try to do that very much more often as I move forward. All right. So our weekly flow, we're going to have an emphasis each week on one pillar, and that's going to go between sleep, eat, move, and manage. So our first week, our emphasis is going to be on our sleep. Weekly prizes are going to be geared around those emphasize the pillar that we're emphasizing each of those weeks. So when you submit next Sunday, next Sunday is not tomorrow. Next Sunday is a week from tomorrow. When you submit your first week, you take a picture and you send that to me. You're entering yourself into a prize raffle for a prize that is sleep oriented. And I can tell you right now, it's either going to be a noise machine or a weighted sleep mask. We're going to have a little tiny. It's going to be cool. I'm excited about it. But you submit at 8 p.m. next week. You're going to go into a raffle. And again, the person who is submitted doesn't need to be the point winner. You just did stuff across the week and you submit it by 8 o'clock next Sunday. You'll be entered into that raffle. 4 weeks of that, every week I'll have a different prize, different theme, and we'll be jumping into a group meeting, which I'll talk about in a second, to talk more about that. And then at the very end, week 5, if you will, after week 4 will be a consistency. If you apply if you send this to me every week, you're entered into the week 5 or the last consistency raffle. If you only do 3 weeks, you won't be entered into that raffle. That's okay. But if we do all 4 weeks, you're going to be entered into that last overall consistency raffle. My recommendation as we go to do this, if this feels overwhelming, is to pick some anchors. Choose 1 to 2 of these habits that you're like, these are things that I really need to focus on. I know that I'm maybe missing the mark, or this is something that I need to focus on. Maybe that's balancing meals. Maybe that's for me getting more sleep. Whatever that is for you, choose 1 to 2 of those things for us to protect, to say like, this is going to be my minimum. At the very least, I'm going to do this habit, even if you don't do the 80 ounces of water. Dave, that's so much water. Okay, don't worry about that. worry about the ones that are going to be valuable to you. And at the end of the 4 weeks, you're going to say like, wow, I'm really proud of myself for sticking with this. I've learned some things about myself along the way. And now I also know how to apply this moving forward in a way that's maybe a little bit more flexible than what I've done in the past. Those are going to be our minimum. And if you want to, you can highlight that column. You can write it down somewhere, whatever it is that reminds yourself of like, there is this tracking sheet, but you don't have to do it all perfectly. That's not what we're trying to take away. It's like, oh, well, I didn't track my food 3 of the 7 days this week, so I'm not going to send this to David on Sunday. It's like, no, that's the opposite of what we're looking for. We're trying to reward doing something as opposed to I either did everything or I did nothing. Okay. I mentioned group me. So in the email that I sent yesterday, if you didn't get that, we're going to chat about it real soon. There's a link to join the group me group chat, which is where we're going to be sending out information on a weekly basis. I mentioned the weekly themes. That's also Colby and I will be there answering questions. If you have questions about the challenge, if you have questions about, if you do take a picture of your plate, you can send it there and be like, hey guys, does this look like a balanced meal? That'll be a perfectly fine place for us to give feedback. You can also do that in person. If there are questions, ask early. My biggest recommendation, this is only 4 weeks. 4 weeks feels like a long time now, but it'll be that, and we'll be at the end of January. If you have questions, ask those questions early so that we have the ability to apply that over the next 4 weeks, not at the end of the 4 weeks. You're like, oh crap, I wish I would have known that week 1. And at the end of the day, we're looking for a little bit of progress. We're not looking for perfection. So we're trying to do these small habits in some imperfect way, whatever imperfect way you guys can show up and do. All right, staying in the game. So I mentioned we have a weekly raffle entry. We also have our final raffle eligibility. Our final raffle grand prize is we're going to do some ongoing nutrition coaching and or probably both of these personal training as well. So if that's something that's intriguing to you, excellent. Make sure that you submit your tracker every single week. If you don't care about those things, still submit your things every week. We can chat about what you get excited about in that final raffle grand prize. And that's you holding the trophy of being excellent in your life. Okay. So again, showing up imperfectly. We're going to join Group Me if you haven't already done that, and most of you have not done that. So in the next day and a half, let's see if we can get into Group Me and get a message sent out. I asked for just like a wave of the hand and also what you're hoping to get out of this. I think it's always valuable whenever you're doing something group oriented to say, this is what I'm looking to get out of it. So other people who are like, oh, that's what I'm looking to get out of it too. We can find some connections there. We will be starting on Monday. So that'll be the 5th, not today, not tomorrow, the day after. That'll be officially our day 1 on our week 1. And all you have to do, just track what you're doing on a daily basis. Track what you're doing on a daily basis. Submit your weekly photo to me by 8 p.m. And then on Monday will be the raffle winner. Text or email. Either one's fine. Beautiful. I have less than a minute here, so I'm going to stop my recording. I don't know if it's going to get kicked off here. How do I stop my